everyone, welcome back to another video. This is the first ScrawlrBox of 2025, so hopefully we are starting off with a bang. We're just going to get straight into this. There's not much give to the book, so I'm excited to see a jam-packed box. Okay, so firstly, let's have a look at the featured artwork. Very interesting. This could be some sort of paint pen. Very interesting, very surreal. This is the featured artist, Frankie Curtis, an artist with an overactive imagination, born and bred in southeast London. I'll let you have a read of that and check out their socials at the bottom here. And then let's get into the supplies. Interesting. So, we seem to have a bazooka sour apple. As you all know, if you've been following for a while, I love a sour sweet, so we will put a sweet rating and a sour rating up here for this. Very excited to try it. So for the supplies, oh, we've got the sticker as well. It's been a while. It feels like a long time since doing this, but it was only last month. This is a sticker, a snippet of the featured artwork. Let's start with the small supplies. We have a Unipin Fine Line 0.3. So we've had these plenty in ScrawlrBox. They are very nice pens. I do quite like them. I keep them always on hand. Very nice. Water and fade proof pigment ink. We also have a Uniposca white pen in the smaller size, so not the fine tip but the smaller size, and this actually doesn't have the felt tip, it's got the plastic nib, which I never really get along with. I always find they splatter when you get stuck on the grain of some paper, so I'm hoping this card that they've provided is a smoother card, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then the main supply we seem to have in the box here is Faber-Castell's 6 creative markers. Very nice. Suitable for fabric, on brick, on glass, plastic and metal. Interesting. Curious to see what these are like. So they're a bit more like a paint marker, I guess. Permanent paint marker. Pop these out of here. Let's have a look at the nib. So it is a bullet nib, a fine bullet nib. Interesting. This one's called Plum Cake. That's a nice name. Okay, let's have a read of the Scrawlr zine, a flick through of that and see what we are looking at. Okay, let's have a look at the zine. So this is the spread with all the supplies on there. So this is the colour palette Forest Friends for those pens, a colour palette perfectly fit for this month's theme. These pens were made for doodling. Firm nibs provide a sturdy and consistent colour application. Interesting. Then we have a little bit more about the featured artist. Then we have the Scrawlr tips, and I think some more Scrawlr tips on the next page, which I will read through when we start swatching. Then we have the Scrawlr gallery. So this is a featured artwork from 2 months prior to this box, so this is when we received the Winsor & Newton designer gouache, and the Scrawlr challenge was Mythical Monsters. Very, very nice takes on this. Lovely. It was a lovely box. It really was. I don't think I gave it the time I should have. It was a very, very nice box, so there's some lovely, lovely ones there. I recognise quite a lot of names. And then the top 3 for this box here, very nice as well. This cat here is absolutely incredible. I love it. Very, very nice. Then the Scrawlr extra for this. Oh, so this is more Scrawlr challenges. Oh, I'm featured. There I am. So this is featuring artwork from many boxes prior. It's no particular box. They've started doing this recently. So I've been featured here for when we had some pencils and I think some gouache there as well. And I did the little bookshelf. Very, very nice. That's a nice little addition. Then the Scrawlr extra here is Back to Life, and the Scrawlr challenge is Fantasy Forest. So that's why they were saying that the forest themed colour palette here is very fitting. So I'm excited to try that. I think that's going to be very interesting. What was it again? I forget it as soon as I read it. Fantasy Forest. Okay, so that's very broad. I think you can do all sorts with that. I'm interested to see how these pens work, considering they can be used on a multitude of different surfaces, and then the card they have provided is A5 white card. So yes, it is very smooth, so hopefully that Uniposca won't hit any sorts of lumps and bumps on that paper. Very interesting. I'm excited to test these out, so let's get swatching and then let's see what we can come up with for the Scrawlr challenge. So for the Scrawlr tips, they were pretty usual. We had the swatching, we had markers and mark making, you know, creating hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, etc, etc, testing these pens out in the usual fashion. But what did intrigue me is that it told us that we can grab a palette and water these down, which I know you can do with paint markers, but I wasn't sure how it would react because these markers are so versatile with the surfaces they can be used upon. So I did later on grab a palette, because the way I'm doing it here in this swatching section is not great. I'm obviously using them straight onto the page, and then I'm leaving that ghosting and only picking up a smidge of that pigment, but even by that standard you can see the amount of pigment in these pens, which is great. But like I said, later on I do grab a palette and I do use that, and you know, the versatility of these pens goes further and further beyond what you saw on the packet with the different surfaces you could use. I will, however, say that when I tried to blend these on the paper like this, this paper was chewed up quickly. I'm not sure how you would ever get a flat colour lay down on this paper, because it would just chew it up completely. So if you have managed to do that, do let me know. Were you just very careful with doing that, or did you do a different method or try a different piece of paper? Because it certainly didn't work for me. So straight onto the artwork then. We were working to the Scrawlr Challenge Fantasy Forest. Now looking at these colours, in the zine they did say it was a forest collection of colours, but if you look at the box it doesn't mention anywhere about this being a particular set called a particular name. So I think that may have been Scrawlr's take on these colours, because I did think the purple was very strange colour to have in a forest set of colours. But I did look at the colours and I thought, how can I create this? So I had a look at some reference photos. I went for a little walk in the woods and I kind of saw that the blues, the greens, yes, very good for forest, you know, your typical things, but I kind of was like, I want to use them differently. I want to do a different perspective. Then I looked up and I saw that through these lovely tall arching trees, you see the greenery of them at the top and you see a smidge of that blue sky. So I thought, this is perfect. And this is where I used these pens on a palette and I watered them down and created layers, much like a watercolour painting and much like using them more sparingly and less opaque than they probably are intended to be used. So that's what I did here. I laid down a really nice blue, really watered down, so it was very subtle, and then I went ahead and started using I think it was a mixture of the brown and a little bit of blue and green and a smidge of the black, just to kind of create a deeper brown shade, and that's what I used to fill in the trunks of the trees and the branches. And I used an old Scrawlr paintbrush, which I believe is the cat's tongue paintbrush. I think you all told me it was cat's tongue last time. Apologies if it's not. And that's what I used to just start doing those trunks, and then I used a watered down green to start filling in the base layer of the leaves. Now this is the moment where I was a bit like, why have I started to do this? This is going to take me hours. And I definitely took a lot more care at this point, and then later on I heavily relied on dry brushing. You will see me use this paintbrush in a non-conventional way, in a way that may make you cringe. It makes me cringe watching it back that I'm destroying this paintbrush, but it was the only way to fill in this space quickly, but whilst also leaving a little bit of that blue peeking through to mimic that sky coming through the leaves. I did go in with this finer paintbrush again, but it was just taking a bit too long for my liking. I'm a very impatient painter, I've realised, and as soon as it starts taking a lot more work, I definitely try and take shortcuts, basically. But yes, so that's what I did. I did mix the green with a little bit of the blue to make it a deeper green. It wasn't the leafy colour I was after, but with this limited palette I think we did quite well. thought I would spare you seeing all of that detail over and over again, but I basically layered up the layers 3 times, this being one of the final layers with a much darker green. Like I say, I think I added in the blue, and then in this particular layer I added a smidge of black as well, just to deepen it even further. And this is the dry brushing, I'm telling you. I'm really ragging this paintbrush over the paper and dry brushing this on, but it created that lovely like mottling effect that worked really well. And then I thought the branches needed a lot more darkening because I'd gone over it with a lot of the green, and so I added a little bit further black into the brown sepia tone and just went over, but really dry, so it kind of created a bit of texture. Now once I finished this, I kind of was hoping it was done, but the more I looked at it, the more I was like, this needs some more. So I started adding that uni pen, and I thought, okay, let's go the full hog, let's use all the supplies that were provided in this box, and this uni pen was, so I thought, let's add this in. So I did a very sketchily filling in of the pen, adding maybe just the odd extra branch in there with it, and this really did make these branches pop and did do the final thing. It was a risk, it was definitely a risk, and I was a bit nervous about doing it, but it was the best risk I could have done. I really like the way this turned out. And then to finish it off, I just used the white Uniposca in between the branches, right in the centre, to mimic kind of that breakage of the different trees, and then added a further deeper, more on the black side, outer for around the edges, just to deepen it, so it was a lot darker down by the floor of the forest and a lot lighter up by the centre where the sky and the sunlight is poking through. But that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I am very, very pleased with this artwork, so do let me know what you think. Leave a tree emoji in the bottom there if you've made it this far and you really like this artwork as much as I do. I would really appreciate that. So thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.